Welcome to the Muscle Building Mastery Podcast, where guys that want to build muscle come to learn how to do it properly. We understand that there's more to building muscle than mindlessly throwing weights around and chugging mass gainer shakes. We're not interested in quick fixes or anabolic assistance. We're interested in mastering the art, science and skill set required to stack on real muscle and strength. My name's Andy Clements, and for the last 12 years I've devoted my life to figuring out how guys like us who don't have amazing genetics, don't have 5 hours a day to spend in the gym, and don't want to take steroids as a shortcut can build insane amounts of muscle and strength in weeks and months, not years and decades. This podcast is the result of all the lessons I've learned along the way, and it will give you the blueprint to building more muscle in less time. To get you started, head to www.musclebuildingmastery.net to download your free 6-week workout plan. Boom, what is going on, you guys? This is Andy Clements here with another episode of the Muscle Building Mastery Podcast. I'm super excited to have you guys here because in this episode we're going to talk a little bit about digestion tips for muscle building. Now, not a super sexy, popular topic, but one that's incredibly important if you're serious about building muscle. And it's one that's so easy to get right as well, right? Because it doesn't cost you any money to do what I'm going to tell you to do right now. It doesn't take you that much more time, maybe a couple of minutes more, right? But the effect it can have, not only on your physique, but on your health, can be absolutely insane, really profound. So as I record this, I'm just sat in the dark in my home office here. I'm going to go down and watch some TV before bed in a minute, but I wanted to cut a quick podcast here because this stuff is really important. The digestion stuff, and the reason I sort of found out about this is when I first started building muscle, like most people, my only sort of education on muscle building or on training or on nutrition, for example, was just to eat as much as you possibly can and lift as heavy as you possibly can, right? That was my thought process, because that was the conventional wisdom, and to a large extent it still is. A lot of people still believe that all muscle building is to ram as much food as you possibly can in your body, or eat as clean as you can, have a cheat meal once a week, for example, and lift as heavy as you possibly can. And it's so much more than that, you guys. It's so much more than that. And if you can learn just some simple steps to make it a little bit more of an intelligent approach, you will build so much more muscle, and you'll be so much healthier, and your mindset will be clearer, and everything will just run smoothly rather than just trying to force it into place, because it's not as complicated as people make it, and it shouldn't be a forced process. Muscle building really shouldn't. So anyway, I'm going off on a tangent already. So what I used to do when I first started muscle building is I used to ram as much food in as possible, as fast as possible, right? Now, it wasn't that I ate junk food. I just subscribed to that mainstream belief that you've got to eat clean, but you've got to eat a lot, right? So I ate loads of food, but it was all boring. It was like chicken and rice and broccoli and white fish and tuna and all the boring stuff nobody ever wants to eat, right? That was my diet, okay? Because I thought you have to eat clean. And then once a week I got to binge on my cheat meal, which was your pizza normally, or a Chinese, or whatever I decided I wanted, normally a takeaway. So and I used to just eat that 11 o'clock at night after I finished work, whatever. And I used to end up with a ton of gut health issues, right? And to the point, I'm not joking, I'm making this up. I think I've spoken about this on the podcast before. I ended up in hospital with my gut health issues, because I was bedbound for I remember this one particular time, I didn't even know how I'd done it, and to be honest, I still don't know the exact thing that I did wrong, but I just know the culmination of things that I was doing probably added to it. With ramming food in and eating ridiculously clean foods and then cheat meals on the weekend and stuff. And it put me in hospital. I was bedbound for a week. I was in incredible pain. I thought, the doctors thought at first I had appendicitis, and I was just in a real bad way. And it wasn't my appendix. Nothing wrong with my appendix. My appendix is still fine. But it was just my gut, so my stomach, my intestines, all these areas of my digestive system, which in such a beat up way because I abused them basically for so long by following this meathead, dumbass, mainstream bodybuilding diet in order to try and put as much muscle as I possibly can on. And the irony of all this is, right, The irony of all this is, I didn't actually put on that much muscle, if any, really, in this period of time that I was like ramming food in as much as possible. I didn't actually put very much muscle on at all. There wasn't much of a visible difference in my physique whatsoever from force feeding myself. And that was the massive irony of it. Like, I put myself through absolute hell. I put myself in the hospital, and I didn't actually get that much of a result from it anyway. So it's like, I ended up thinking, what was the point of doing all of that, and I'm going through all that pain and not actually even achieving the result that I was going through all that pain to achieve. So I was a little bit frustrated, but what I started doing, and it was kind of spurred on by the fact that I was in such a bad way with my gut. And, I was in hospital and they were giving me oral morphine, and they'd set me for like CT scans, and they just had no idea. Like, I think mainstream medicine isn't brilliant with the gut anyway, but that's a complete separate topic. But they just had no idea what was wrong with me. So it was left to me to figure out what the hell was wrong with me. Like, and this is how I figured out, like, it was the way I was eating, and my lack of attention to digestion in general, that was causing these massive, massive cataclysmic gut health issues. And these aren't something that happen after like one bad day, right? These are something that happens after months and months and years of eating in a pretty dysfunctional way and having a dysfunctional relationship with food as I did. So I started doing some research, and I started, I can remember the first podcast I ever listened to on gut health was by a guy called Phil Graham, and he's still an awesome guy, and I still follow him on some stuff. He's more into the business side of stuff now, but back in the day, it was a big influence on my journey of sort of fitness in general, and muscle building and fat loss and performance and that sort of stuff. And he was just this big dude, this big Northern Irish dude, and he's just awesome. Anyway, that was the first podcast episode I listened to, and then I went deep on like some scientists and gut health experts, and read books and did the whole thing. Went deep on the gut, and I'm still learning about the gut to this day. I'm still this never stops learning this stuff. But I can remember back in the day that was what I was doing, and I came to this realization after going through maybe a couple of weeks of podcasts and YouTube videos, and I didn't get that deep after a couple of weeks, but I came to this realization from everything I was learning that completely changed the game for me, and it's kind of like influenced everything I've done since that day, since that period in my life. It's influenced everything. It completely changed the way I looked at nutrition. Not only changed the way I looked at nutrition, by the way, but it also changed the way I looked at training. It changed the way I looked at muscle building as a whole. I started to look at muscle building as more of a holistic thing. So you're looking at building muscle, and you're looking at the body as a whole. You're not looking at just what like nutrition's one thing, and that's completely separate to training. That's completely separate to sleep. No, it's all interconnected. It's all interconnected. And you've got to look at how you flow through your day in order to build the most muscle. And anyway, this is again another tangent, but this is the realization I came to. Right. So the realization I came to was the saying, like the cliche almost, you are what you eat, isn't entirely true, right? So everybody sort of says you are what you eat, right? And nobody really ever puts much more thought into it than that. It's just kind of lost all meaning at this point. But that's not actually true, or it's not 100% true. Here's the full and complete statement. You are what you eat, digest, absorb, and assimilate into cells. Okay, so there's then 4 stages. You are what you eat, digest, absorb, and assimilate into cells. Now, if you aren't paying attention to your digestion, you are not going to digest the food you're eating, you're not going to absorb it into your bloodstream, and you're not going to assimilate into cells. Now, how do we build muscle? We build muscle by assimilating nutrients into our cells for growth and repair, okay? Is that right? Yeah, of course that's right. So, if you're not digesting the food properly, then yeah, you're going to be assimilating some food into your cells, otherwise you die, but you're not going to be assimilating all of the nutrients, and a lot of the nutrients are just going to be passing straight through or causing damage and leaking through the gut, because the gut's only one cell thick, so, that's where you get things like leaky gut and IBS and IBD and stuff like that. And so if you're not paying attention to your digestion, guys, instead of building muscle with the food that you're eating, you're going to just be causing damage to your digestive system. And that's not what we want for anyone, right? Because then that's going to lead to other issues. Like there's a massive link through a nerve called the vagus nerve, which links the gut to the brain, right? And so if you have a faulty digestive system, then you're going to start experiencing mental health issues. So for a long time, when I was having these digestive issues, I was suffering with depression, I was suffering with anxiety, I was suffering like with brain fog. I was really suffering with my mental health as well. And so I've been through a lot of different things. Different like mental health courses and stuff like that, and yeah, they did help, but nothing kind of clicked for me mentally is when I started fixing my diet and fixing the way I approach food. And so, yeah, this is about muscle building, and I'm keeping it muscle building centric, but I want you guys to understand that the impacts that not paying attention to your body as an organism, not paying attention to your body as an actual being, instead of just a machine that you're just trying to slab more meat on, can be far-reaching. You can have real far-reaching negative impacts if you don't pay attention to the right things. So digestion is one of the biggest things you're going to pay attention to. So that's what happened to me, and that's the realization that I had. Now, what I want to do for the rest of this episode, I'm not going to keep it too long. I've been going about 10 minutes now, but I'm going to maybe do another 10 minutes here, and I'm going to give you guys 4 tips or cover 4 main points, and then I'm going to give you some tangible things to do to improve your digestion. Does that sound good? Okay. So the first thing I want to say to you as a precursor to what I'm going to say is, in order to understand digestion, you need to have a little bit of an overview of the nervous system, in particular the autonomic nervous system. Now, all autonomic means is kind of like automatic, so you don't have any conscious control over this, right? So the autonomic nervous system is made up of 2 parts, and the first part's called the parasympathetic. Now, don't get hung up on these words. Just go with me, right? So when I say parasympathetic, you can think rest and digest. So the rest and digest system gets activated when we are chilled out, when we're in a chilled out state, okay? So what the rest and digest system does, as the name would suggest, is it diverts the blood flow and the nutrients and all the different things that we need as resources in our body to the digestive system. Okay, it diverts all the because we've got a finite amount of blood in our body, finite amount of resources and substances and chemicals and stuff like that, and so it all gets diverted into the mouth and releases saliva, and the stomach and releases gastric acid juices, and the intestines and this state is what we use for reproduction. So if you're having sort of intimate moments with the missus or the girlfriend or whatever you've got, then that's the same system that gets activated. So that's the system that you use for digesting food. Now, that's the first thing you need to know. The second thing you need to know is there's an opposite system to the rest and digest or the parasympathetic nervous system called the sympathetic nervous system, and that's what you'll probably have heard of as the fight or flight system or the stress response system. Okay, now what you need to know about these 2 systems is they work in tandem, they work in opposition to each other, right? So when the parasympathetic or the rest and digest system is activated, the sympathetic or the fight or flight response is deactivated. So the more that you can move into a chilled out, restful state, the less stressed your body will be, like physiologically, because that area of your nervous system is going to start to wind down and turn off. Now, the sympathetic nervous system or the fight or flight nervous system, the stress response part, is activated in response to either a perceived threat in the external environment or some sort of physical need, like training. Like, for example, when we are in the gym, we want the sympathetic, we want the stress response to be turned on, because that's going to help us be stronger, it's going to help us be faster, it's going to help us be fitter, and it's going to help us perform better. But that's the opposite effect as we want when we are sitting down at the dining table or wherever we are to eat our meal, okay? So if you have the stress response turned on, as you do when you're coming out of the gym because you've just been training, you won't digest food properly, and you'll more than likely end up with issues with your gut if you end up doing this over a consistent period of time. Does that make sense? So one of the most important things that you could do, if you take one thing away from this episode, is to move yourself into a parasympathetic or a rest and digest state before meals. Now, this is especially true after training because, like I said, when you've just finished training, your fight or flight response is high, your stress response is high, the hormones of stress are high, the level of cortisol in your blood is going to be super high at that point because you've just been training. Yes, you're going to feel good, probably because you've got your endorphins running around, but you are going to have the hormones of stress running around your body. So what happens when the hormones of stress are running around your body and the fight or flight response is turned on is the blood and the resources in our body that would otherwise be diverted to the digestive system or the reproductive system, as they would be in the rest and digest response, are diverted to the limbs. They're diverted to the arms and the legs and the chest and the back and the skeletal muscles, right? Because we need them from from an evolutionary standpoint, we needed them to either fight or hide, right? But in modern times, we need them to train our bodies in the gym, or we need them to do whatever we need them to do. But this is what's happening when the hormones of stress are released. The blood is in the limbs and the muscles rather than in the digestive system. So if you then go straight out of the gym and you've got the hormones of stress running around your body, you've got cortisol's high in your bloodstream, and you're in a high state of fight or flight response, sympathetic nervous system activity, and you then immediately try and start eating a big meal, or you immediately get in the car and you get whatever food you've got in the car and you start shoving it in your face because of that anabolic response or whatever people are starting to talk about, right? Which has been a thing for years that people have spoke about. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be trying to force feed a system that has no resources to deal with the food you're putting in there, okay? So, like I've just said, the fight or flight response is upregulated after the gym. You've got all the blood in your body's in your muscles because you've just been training. Now, when all the blood in the body's in the muscles, it's not in the stomach, it's not in the intestines, there's no saliva being produced to break down the food, so you're not going to be able to digest the food. You're just going to be like trying to force your body into a state that it's not in, okay? So this is a massive topic, but and I could do a series of podcasts just on this, and I'll probably do more podcasts in the future to try and explain it a bit more if this is something that you guys want and you guys are enjoying and it's helping you. But for now, I've got maybe 4 or 5 practical tips that I can give you that don't take any time, or take very, very little time, maybe a couple of minutes max, don't cost any money, and will help you get more out of your food in terms of digestion and not doing any damage to your gut health or anything like that. And I want to give these, I'm putting this incredibly valuable information out for free because this is how I learned the information first. I learned it from things like podcasts and blog posts and YouTube videos, and it was only after when I started paying for things that I learned it at a deeper level. But I started getting started with free things, so I want to sort of pay it forward and put stuff out there, so if one person hears this and it helps them to avoid the gut health issues that I had, and it helps them to build the muscle that they want with the food that they're already eating and get more out of the food, then it's absolutely 100% worth it. So here we go. The first tip I've got for you when you're sitting down to eat a meal is to take the time before you eat to look at and smell and appreciate your food. So by taking in your food visually and smelling the food and sort of making it a full-on sensory experience, what you're then doing to your body is you're signaling the brain to tell the glands in your mouth, the saliva glands, to produce saliva ready for the experience of eating. So the saliva in your mouth has enzymes to break down the various different nutrients in the food. It's got protease and lipase and amylase to break down the proteins, the carbs and the fats in the food, and you're going to be able to start breaking down that food more effectively. So by the time it reaches the stomach, then the stomach has less work to do to be able to break down the food as well. Now, at the same time as the brain's signaling the mouth to release more saliva, it's going to be signaling through the vagus nerve I spoke about earlier. It's going to be signaling the stomach that this food about to be coming, because it can smell the food, it can sense the food, it can see the food, and the stomach will then respond by releasing more gastric acid, which is acid that's going to help us to break down the food when it reaches the stomach. So by taking a minute or two just to take in the food and make it more of a sensory experience rather than just rushing straight into it, and only has to be 30 seconds, just to prepare your body a little bit, and just to, like when you put your head on the pillow at night, you don't instantly fall asleep very often. Sometimes if you're absolutely exhausted, maybe, but you don't put your head on the pillow and you're instantly asleep. You have to kind of prepare yourself for sleep. You kind of have to get comfortable. You have to close your eyes. You have to roll around a little bit, and then maybe 5-10 minutes later you'll fall asleep. So prepare your body for food in the same way. Prepare your nervous system to switch in that rest and digest state. And that'll upregulate saliva and gastric acid. Now, the appreciation and gratitude, if you can take a minute and just feel and think about being a little bit grateful and being a bit appreciative of the food you're about to eat, and just sort of think about people that are less fortunate than you, maybe, who don't have the food, the access to food that you've got, who don't, have maybe the money to afford it, or don't have access to it, or whatever. And you just take a minute to appreciate the fact that you've got this amazing food on your plate, and just put yourself in a state of gratitude and appreciation. That's instantly switching you out of the hormones of stress. You cannot be stressed and grateful at the same time. You cannot be stressed and in fight or flight response and appreciative at the same time. You're elevating your state, you're elevating your emotions. And I know that might seem a little bit hippie or a little bit, esoteric or whatever, but it's true. It's 100% true. So you're literally changing your physiology in that moment by being appreciative and thankful for the food that you're about to eat. And you're putting yourself into a parasympathetic state, which is going to, again, further push the resources into your digestive system, as opposed to pushing them into the limbs, which is what happens when we're training and we're driven by the hormones of stress. So that's the first thing. It's appreciation, gratitude, and it's sensory input of the food we're about to eat. The second thing is to chew your food more. So when you start actually eating the food, chew it more. There's been studies shown, there's literally been studies done on this, right? Well, individuals that chew each mouthful for 40 times, so they have 40 sort of chews of each mouthful, or more, are leaner, much leaner on average than individuals who chew for less than 40 times. Now, I know chewing for 40 times might be a lot, but if you're just like literally swallowing the food whole, you're chewing for like 5 or 6 times, then maybe just try chew it a little bit more. So there's a couple of things happen when you do that. First of all, you're going to break down the food more effectively through mechanical digestion, which means that you're going to you just through breaking down the food through the teeth, you're going to be able to give the stomach and the digestive system an easier job to break it down further when it gets down the chain. And also, by breaking it down with the teeth, you're exposing more of the kind of surface area of the food to the saliva, which is, again, as I mentioned, got the enzymes in it, which can break down the food even more. So again, you're giving the stomach less of a taxing job to be able to break down that food, and you're going to have less chance of leaky gut, and you're going to have less chance of these inflammatory bowel syndromes or inflammatory bowel disease or whatever it's called. And you're gonna assimilate and absorb that food into cells much more effectively. So that's the second thing. The first thing you got is the sensory input and the appreciation. The second thing is chew your food more and give your digestive system less to do. The third thing is to eat food that you enjoy. Okay, don't force feed yourself rubber chicken and broccoli like I did for years. Right, it's not gonna work for you. If you're force feeding yourself stuff that you really don't like, then it doesn't matter how grateful you are, how appreciative you are, how many times you chew it. If you don't like it and you're not enjoying it, you're not having a good time eating it, and you're just forcing yourself to eat it because you think it's something that you should be eating, then you ain't going to produce the saliva or gastric acid that your body needs to be able to break that food down, because you just don't want to be eating it, right? You just don't want to be eating it. When we eat something that we enjoy, even if it's not maybe quite as textbook on paper nutritious, if we just eat something we enjoy, it's like 5% less bro sciencey good for us than what we're actually eating, but we're getting the benefit of actually enjoying it and looking forward to it and being excited to eat it. Then we're going to produce so much more saliva, so much more gastric acid. We're going to be able to break down that food so much more. So I'm not saying eat junk food, but what I am saying is don't be one of these guys that just like eats the cleanest food ever just because they think that's the only way to do it, when that you actually hate eating that way and you're miserable when you're eating, because that's no good for your digestion. Okay, so the next thing, got two more things I'm gonna give you guys for digestion. If you're on the go, this is just a small one. If you're on the go with 5 minutes to eat, so for example, all the years I was being a personal trainer, in between clients, I might have 5 minutes, and that's the only time I've got in the day to eat. If you're on the go with 5 minutes to eat, if you're in between meetings, or if you're on a long drive, or whatever's going on, don't try and nail a big steak. Don't try and nail something that's going to take a hell of a lot of chewing, right? That's the kind of time, if you've got no time to sit down and do all the things I've just said, take the time to eat take the time to look at and smell and appreciate your food, chew your food more, all this sort of stuff, and eating food you enjoy. Don't if you haven't got the time to do that, don't try and eat really complex food. That's the time to have something like a protein shake, right? Now, I'm not endorsing the protein shake diet. I'm not saying have protein shakes all the time, but if it's got to be appropriate for the situation you're in, right? So if you literally have no time whatsoever, and you're on a 10-hour drive, and all you've got is that you've got no opportunity to eat because you have to be somewhere in 10 hours, and you just got to sit in the car for that long, then maybe it's a good time to take some protein shakes with you, or some easily digestible foods, right? Not massive steak, or not massive, serving of chicken, something like that. So just be mindful that these situations can happen, and try and do your best to be kind to your body instead of just force feeding it stuff that you think is good for you. So that's the main tips. The last tip, and it's like a bonus tip I've got for you here, and this is something I learned from a guy called Stan Efferding, who's again a really, really intelligent guy when it comes to the gut and comes to diets. I think his diet's called the Vertical Diet. I've tried it; it's amazing. I've got some awesome tips from it, and took some cool stuff away from it. And one of his really cool tips is the 10-minute walk, and he does. I think he does like YouTube videos where he goes on his 10-minute walks, and his little rants about nutrition or whatever he's talking about that particular day on his 10-minute walks. And the whole principle behind the 10-minute walks is like gentle movement, and I mean gentle movement, not like intense movement, but a gentle 10-minute walk after every meal, or as many meals as you can fit it in, helps the digestive system to keep moving and keep doing its job. And if you can do that walk in nature, that's like bonus points, because nature, you're getting us out of the concrete jungle of the cities or the towns or the villages that we live in, and getting us out into nature, whether it's woods, whether it's lakes, whether it's fields, whether it's beaches, wherever you live, getting out into a natural setting, that's like bonus points, because that's going to really activate the parasympathetic nervous system, or that rest and digest nervous system, and it's going to really help us to chill out and help our body to have more resources to digest the food that we've just eaten. So a 10-minute walk is something that I do after every single meal, unless it's literally not possible because I'm in such a rush or whatever, but it's always something that I would say after 90% of the times I eat, I get out and I do a 10-minute walk, and I feel so much better for it. Like I can just tell that my food's being digested. I can feel my food being like moving through the digestive system more in my body. And if I don't do the 10-minute walk now, because I've done it for so many years, if I don't do my 10-minute walk after meals, then I start to feel a little bit bloated. Like I don't feel bad. It depends what I've eaten and how I've eaten it, But like if I don't do the 10-minute walk now, then I know about it. I can feel maybe a little bit bloated, a little bit lethargic, and like my food's just not digesting as efficiently or as quickly as it might do if I did the 10-minute walk. So that's the last thing I've got for you guys, the 10-minute walk from Stan Efferding, which is again a really simple concept, but something that will change the game for you if you get it right. So I hope that was useful. I know that was a longer episode than normal, but I think since I've stopped doing the video version of this podcast, I can sit down and I can formulate my thoughts a little bit more without having to worry about how I look on camera and stuff. So I hope that was useful, guys. If you made it this far, then thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I'd really, really appreciate it if you're on a platform that you can leave a review, that you go leave a review, or if you're watching this, because I'm going to upload this the audio to YouTube as well. If you're watching this on YouTube, drop me a comment, let me know what you think, let me know if you've got any questions. If you like these longer form style podcasts, then get in touch and let me know. And if you think this was useful, then share it with someone who would find it useful as well. And don't forget to subscribe, because I'm going to do more of these podcasts every single day. So I hope that was useful, guys. I can't wait to see you on the next episode of the Muscle Building Mastery podcast. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon. If you're ready to stop wasting time in the gym and start mastering the skill of muscle building, go check out www.musclebuildingmastery.net to download your free 6-week muscle building workout plan. I have specifically formulated this workout plan to take you through the 3 stages of mastering your body, layering on a more advanced training methodology each week as you progress. That means that regardless of where you are with your training right now, this plan will push you forward and help you stack on more muscle and strength in just 6 weeks. So head to www.musclebuildingmastery.net now to grab your free 6-week workout plan.